kaboot it.
Dude.
You're laughing at me.
I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
Hi, we're tearing stuff.
Want to play?
Fez,
Yeah.
first, how are you feeling? And second of all, what are your general thoughts on the Chucky franchise?
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, this is one of the franchises that, I mean, much in line with all the other horror franchises, I busted through whatever was available at the video store at the time when I started raiding the video store when I was old enough to do so. But we'll get to it a little later about the specific ones. But there's a couple of these that used to come on TV, like the Sci-Fi Channel, constantly. Like, I think, we'll get to them. Some of the sequels just used to come on all the damn time. So I used to see them pretty frequently, and I was always fascinated as to why the TV Guide always had them at 1 star. You remember, like the newspapers and the TV Guides? I don't know if you remember this, but they used to, they would have the layouts, right? And it would say the movie, but based on whoever the TV Guide critic was, would have a star behind it. So it'd be 1 to 4. And like all these horror movies would always have 1 star. And then of course you get older and you're like, well, you're just a curmudgeon asshole, whoever wrote all of these. Because
Actually, so
movies aren't bad.
I knew TV Guide and all that stuff, but yeah, I never paid attention to those types of things back in the day. So I never realized that. And that actually is really funny, especially nowadays as I've become a horror fan to talk to people and realize that most people either just aren't accepting of what horror brings. Like people allow fantasy to do whatever it wants because it's fantasy, but don't realize that a lot of horror is fantasy too. It's just scary in the horror genre. So it's like a lot of the stuff. Like, I mean, this franchise is about a guy who gets voodooed
Yeah. You have to accept the premise outright within the first 10 minutes that we're gonna get silly because literally the guy gets right before he dies, he's like, I'm just gonna voodoo transfer my soul and lightning's gonna come out of the sky and transfer me into this thing. And it's like, you're either in or you're not. I mean, it's like from that's
the amount of people that that take horror as just 100% realism just is always befuddled me. But so the Chucky franchise, this is one that I am fairly new to because I watched them all this year. I'd seen the first one a couple times, but all the other ones I either hadn't seen or maybe saw as a kid or when I was younger and I don't remember nothing about them, so I didn't have any opinions. So this year is the first time that I've actually watched them, and I've come to a point where I'm like, I like this franchise, you know what I mean? And that's how I've become with the Lies franchise. None of them are always going to be like Tarantino for me, where they're all good movies or they're all favorites. But if I like more than I dislike or only dislike 1 or 2, then I consider myself a fan of the franchise. And this is a scenario where I'm a fan of this franchise. So I'm definitely excited to talk about this one. And, so far in this bringing back the show and switching up into the tier format for the visual, we've talked about Halloween, Friday the 13th, and Final Destination. So now we're on our next and potentially final. Now we haven't talked about further where we're going to go after this, but the Child's Play franchise. So as usual, we're going to go in order. So what we did is we named our tiers because we like to be specific to our groups. Obviously, at the top, if you're going to be a good guy, so that's our S tier for today is the good guy category. Friends till the end because that's just one of the main quotes from the franchise. We thought that was a nice second. My no pun intended, my love child here, Glenn or Glenda for. Because it's literally in the middle. You can't decide which side of the fence you're on. So Glenn or Glenda. Boot camp, just kind of, people don't realize that there's a military school in this franchise.
Yeah.
When you think about what this franchise is, you don't think of that. So I just thought that's fun toward the end. And then you came up with Hide the Soul, putting that at the bottom because if you're hiding the soul, you're probably hiding your feelings on this movie or just hiding this movie in general. You probably don't want to watch it. So, any final thoughts before we get started?
No, it'll be interesting to kind of dive in, and again, you being kind of a newbie to the series, and me be kind of a longer fan of the series. It'll be kind of interesting to see where we go on these. So, how long we lived with. I was going to ask you. So, I know you're fairly new to the thing. So, have you seen any of these in a theater at all?
I saw the remake.
The remake. I figured that might be because the first one I saw in the theater was Seed. So it was 2004. So and we'll talk about that movie like eventually, but like that was my first one because I'd caught up with the other four, and then it was interesting to finally see one in the theater. So and then we had a long hiatus because Cult and Curse were both straight to VOD DVD. Straight to video.
Now where obviously the quality is lower in terms of what VOD meant in the 2000s and to the early 2010s, but now we're in a day of streaming age where that straight, like if those movies came out today, they would be just like Netflix movies or Peacock movies or AMC movies. So it's like the quality will be up a little bit, and the concept that's quote unquote straight to VOD isn't as taboo as it used to be. So it's interesting that that's why we throw those in for these rankings and tiers, because like if those exact movies came out today, they would be eligible for the majority of things. So
sure,
might as well throw them in there. So let's go ahead and get started. I'll let you get started with the original and set the tone.
I mean, I think it might sound cliche, but the original is definitely going to be now. I don't know if we'll find out if it's my favorite, but I'm still going to put it in the top good guy tier for sure, because I think it really set this template for the series about the whole. I mean, it's when you think about the actual plot laid out, it's very similar to any kind of misunderstanding. Nobody believes the person that's being tormented kind of storyline, because that's what it is. There's something going on. They think it's this one thing, and then it's this other thing. But what I like about the movie is that there's a progression as far as how who finds out and when, that I find really fascinating. It almost plays out like a mystery, because we kind of know that Chucky's doing this thing, obviously, and we're with the kid and we sympathize with him because literally he's like a 5 or 6 year old kid, whatever he is. And it's easy to sympathize with him because he's not, I wouldn't say he's helpless. He's actually turns out to be a tougher kid, who kind of will fight back when he needs to, which is what I like about the Andy character. But the relationship with his mom is good. And I like the fact that literally about 45 minutes in, the mom is starting to piece of things together. And she has one of my favorite scenes in the whole series when she just literally holds him over the fire and is like, I'm going to throw you in if you don't talk right now. And if you're going to talk, you need to say something. Bitch. Bitch. It's one of my favorite scenes in the entire series, and it's 45 minutes in, so from there she knows, but then you still have Chris Sarandon as the cop who doesn't really believe them, but 10 minutes later he finds out in the car, and it's an all-out war in the apartment after that, and I think it's a lot of fun, and it really builds to a really good climax. I just think it's also it's really well directed. I think it's shot really well. Tom Holland, the guy who did the original Fright Night, and he's a really solid horror filmmaker, and he kind of knows what he's doing, and he really knows how to build the suspense and stuff. And I think that even the way they're able to blend the back and forth between the animatronic stuff and an actual sort of little person or a kid running around in the background, and the way they're able to kind of blend that works. And it's just an interesting story, of all the voodoo stuff and the serial killer stuff is interesting, as kind of absurd it can get, at points in the series, which we'll talk about. But I think it really works as a nice little suspense thriller, in addition to a straight horror movie. So I like it a lot. Yeah,
justice for Aunt Maggie.
Yeah.
He didn't do anything wrong, and then Andy low key gets framed for it because street size. Andy is the center of this franchise because just what he brings, as a character, and just kind of being the, at the time, the first person you reveal yourself to, that's who you have to swap bodies with and put your soul into their body. So obviously Chucky has that connection to him, for better or for worse. I agree. I'm going to put this in the good guy. It's one of those ones where it took me a minute to get into it. I don't know if it's because at the time I wasn't as much of a horror fan, or if I just didn't know what to expect and it wasn't what I expected. And that's another reason why I never like to go into anything with expectations, because obviously as years have gone by, it's gone up, and it's borderline 5 stars now because of just the movie itself, not my expectations. So that's why I try to avoid expectations, because, times can change of who you are and how you view things.
Well, and as we saw with the Friday the 13th, sometimes the original is not always the best. Sometimes maybe they get the formula in the sequels, sometimes it is with Halloween or something. Sometimes it isn't, with horror, especially, it can bounce either way.
And but I do like the simplicity of this, and the actual horror elements is probably the scariest of them all because of the use of the camera work and the different shots of like just the footsteps or just the sneaking around, or the, obviously, in hindsight we're like, oh yeah, we always knew all along. But like, imagine if you just watched this for the first time in 1988, you're like, maybe Andy's full of shit. You know what I mean? You just never know. Like, it does a good job, like you said, with Tom Holland's filmmaking. So I agree. This is definitely a good guy category, and definitely a minimal yearly rewatch.
It's better every time I watch it, and it's not one of the ones I've seen the most time. Like I said, I've seen some of the sequels more than I've seen the original, just through like cable viewings and like the sort of ether of how they pop up on streaming and stuff. But we'll talk about it. But yeah, it's still like, I'm surprised I don't go back to it more than I do, because in rewatching it, again recently, I was like, no, it just works. It's such a really good movie. Like, just the way it's structured and the way it plays out, like it's just really well done.
Like you said, got the detective element.
Yeah, sure.
Dynamic. It builds up Andy as a character. Obviously his acting isn't going to be great because he's a 6-year-old kid, but it's like, it's not the point. The point is you believe him of what he's going through. And like the scene when it's always just a funny line when he ditches school and him and Chucky go to get his partner, and he's like, I'll be right back, I gotta go tinkle. It's just one of those where it's like, Jesus, you don't ever hear that.
It's such a kid thing that they don't take the time to do in movies anymore. Yeah, we would skip right past that nowadays, and that just builds
up. It reminds you, like, obviously you see a kid, but it reminds you, like, this is a goddamn kid, dude.
Well, and how kids are oblivious to these. We'll talk about a later movie, but there's a moment in Curse where the little girl is like talking, and she's like, oh, Chucky's been talking to you. What's he say? Life's a bitch, and then you die. Like, just such an innocent little kid, something that a kid would say, not knowing the meaning. Like, it's just fun. Like, I like this franchise, like, takes the matter-of-factness about some of this stuff about being a kid. Like, I appreciate that, that other movies wouldn't do.
So I'll start with the second one, and I'm gonna spoil. This is my favorite in the franchise.
Oh, okay, cool.
This movie is just fucking awesome. And Andy, it's to a point, and so obviously everything that I grew up around, it's one of those where I just relate to him, just going through the stuff, and it's like he's a good kid and he means well, but obviously when you're a kid, you don't control your fate and like where you go, and obviously everything with his mom, who knows if it's like story wise, if they couldn't bring her in or whatever, but she was off to the side, being in trouble and all that stuff. But you bring in wow, I'm blanking on the sister's name. I know it's a boy's name.
Oh, Kyle.
Yeah. You bring in Kyle, and it's just one of those ones where it's a typical dynamic between a kid and a teenager where she's too cool for him and all stuff, but it just builds up just the relationship and just how she's, once again, similar to what you said in the first one with the mom, how her scene when the footprints or whatever during the swings, when she's swinging,
and then she puts him in the trash can, and then she looks back and he's gone, and like she figures it out like pretty quickly. Like, she's not stupid, and she immediately grabs a weapon. Like, she's a smart character. Like, as far as once she figures things out, it's like she defends herself. Like, she's a strong character. Like, she gets into gear. You know what I mean? She doesn't play around.
And then it's my one of my second favorite scene is the scene in the school with the teacher, because obviously the teacher is just being bonkers. Just because story-wise, that's what you need, but the scene, in the closet, and it's probably one of my favorite just Chucky moments when he's got the ruler and he's just hitting it. I'm like, oh, bitch, I'm done. You're done for. And then she's just, it's
well, and I didn't recognize it until I went back and watched it this time. It's the same. She's a character actress. I forget her name, but she was in Speed. She's the lady who tries to sneak off the bus and gets pulled under, and when it kind of half blows up. And
it's what happens when you don't believe the situation.
I know. You got when you don't believe people and you kind of try to do your own thing, you get screwed. So she's died in a couple of movies.
And what did Chucky write on his homework? Fuck you, bitch.
It's like, fuck you, bitch. No, it was a funny moment. I didn't write that. He did. I was like, God damn it.
But this hands down my favorite climax, just in the toy factory and everything. It's once again, it's a perfect combination of tension, comedy, character relationships. Chucky just being Chucky. He's not full on slapstick. Self-aware that he becomes later in the franchise. This is like, I feel like the peak of Chucky. And this is the first time that we get Chucky who becomes the Chucky that we know now as just a icon. But this is probably the point where it's combined with the first one, the held back, personality, and still the slasher, character while also being the cocky asshole with the quips. So it's a perfect combination. So this one's easily my favorite, and it's just new to my 5-star rankings and my high up on my horror stuff. But there's a universe where like next year in my top 100s, this could be in my top 100 just because it's just one. It's so it's short. It's so quick. It's funny. It's got the emotions to it. And this movie, this is just everything that I want from a slasher in general, let alone specifically a Chucky movie. So where are you at with it?
Yeah, I really like it. I'm not in like the top tier category yet for it. Mine's more like a Friends to the End, like just below it. Only because for me, I think the first hour, and I was even rewatching it this week. That first hour is essentially just kind of still a retread of the first movie. It's a lot of the same beats of just like, nobody's believing Andy about, what's going on. And he's kind of slowly taking out people one by one. And like, again, it's watchable. It's good. But that first hour for me, like I wouldn't say it's like a slog, but it's just kind of, I'm kind of waiting for them to kind of really amp it up. And once Kyle finds out and it really gets going, like I'm super on board with it. And I think the third act is like really, really good. Like I think that, basically from the moment he kind of hijacks her to go after Andy or whatever, like we're full on. And that toy factory scene is like, it's like 15 minutes of pure anarchy mayhem. And it's amazing. Like I love it. And even just from a practical standpoint, I mean, the set design of the actual factory like looks cool, and it's just it's really fun to just look at and see like this big obviously it's like some big soundstage or something, but I even just like the mechanics of all the factory stuff like moving around and the way they kind of use the environments, and the eyeball poking thing is like one of my favorite deaths like in the whole series, like when the guy gets on the conveyor belt and he gets like the toy eyes like popped into his, like that's fun. Yeah, that's really fun. And them climbing up the little chutes and everything is great. And the fact that man, he just like keeps coming like over and over and over again. Like they do one thing to him and they think it's over, and like they do another thing to him and they cover him in the wax and he's still coming and they're doing another thing, and like
he's always scary while doing it. It doesn't it feels intimidating, and especially for a kid. It's just it's a good blend.
No, it totally works. And it doesn't get overly comedic, not to say that that's bad. We'll talk about one of these that I really like that is. But I think that, once we get that third act, like it really kicks into high gear for me. Just for me, like watching the first and second one back to back, I more realize like how much of a retread kind of the first like two acts are from the first one, like essentially. And I don't get fully invested in the two like foster parent characters. I'm like, like they're fairly like it's one is kind of with him, one's not. Like it's okay, but I was way more interested in the relationship with him and the Kyle character, and apparently they bring her back with Andy in the TV series. I haven't watched it yet, but they're like there's a
post credit scene in Curse or Cult, and Kyle comes back. So there's
in the TV series they're like Pulp Fiction. They're like Jules and like together, like hunting down rogue like cursed dolls. Like it's very interesting. So I saw a clip of that. I was like, okay, they definitely went somewhere with that. They're still together, kind of. But it's still a really, really good movie. Like I like Child's Play 2 a lot.
There you go. And I'll let you continue segue over.
So oddly enough, Child's Play 3 was the one I was hinting at that used to come on TV just all the time. Like, I don't know why. Like, that's the only one they would show constantly. So this is the one I've seen almost more than any other one. So in rewatching it, I tried to keep that in mind. For me, it's kind of right in the middle. It's like a Glenn or Glenda like tier like in there, just because I don't feel like the technical filmmaking is up to snuff in this one. This one feels like a TV movie, like feels like a made-for-TV movie from like the 90s. Like it just technically, it just kind of looks really cheap. I like the setting. I mean, I like the military thing. It gives it kind of a fresh setting. I don't necessarily mind the recasting with Justin Whalen, because I was a fan of the guy at the time because he was on Lois and Clark, the New Adventures of Superman from the 90s with Dean Cain, and he was like Jimmy Olsen on that show. So I was familiar with him when I would see the movie. But so, I mean, I know they have to have a little bit of a time jump. Like, I think it was just a case where the actor was just not like looking old enough, to do the jump. So that's fine. And I do think there's some fun set pieces, when they're playing the capture the flag stuff with the real bullets. Like I like that's fun. And, I like anytime a thing goes to an amusement park, like I'm down with that. It's just literally, it feels like a made-for-TV production. Like, it feels like they really cut the budget of this one. And I don't think the kills are particularly terribly memorable in this one. Like, there's a few that pop out. It's more of like, maybe the best kill in the movie is not even like a kill, so to speak. It's like when the guy like throws himself on a grenade, like that's one of the more memorable ones, but it's not even really like a direct like Chucky kill sort of, and some of the characters are just kind of cliche. The kid is the little kid, that keeps calling him Charles is kind of annoying. Like for me, like I don't get.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that.
Yeah, Charles, yeah, take him over, like get him out of the movie. Like I don't care, just
What are your thoughts on the rules that he's able to, switch?
I mean, it's like they play around with the rules throughout this whole series and kind of amend it, because then all of a sudden later he needs like this amulet to do it when before he didn't, they kind of play around with that. I mean, I guess because he's in a new body, whoever he encounters first, and that's the kid he's encountered first. But it's very strange that he doesn't like need Andy. So why are you going after Andy? I don't really know. Like it feels like Andy's kind of disconnected from the story in this one. He's just kind of
especially
ancillary.
It's an interesting combo where it's like, and the story he's
ancillary to the plot. Like he's just kind of there because he's there. And I mean, I get it. I just wish they had more of a finale for him. And it wasn't as much of a weak movie. But I don't know. What do you think? Like, I think it's still watchable. Like, I if it's on, like, I'll watch it, as I did many, many times when it was on cable. But, I just feel like it's the quality-wise, it's just not up to the first two, like, at all. So for me.
So for me, this one actually is in Friends to the End, because I like the concept of how it just continues the Andy, like, plot-wise. Obviously you don't have that legit connection because of, I can't think of the actor's name right now that plays Andy. It's
Justin Whalen.
Whalen,
yeah.
No, I'm talking about the original.
Alex Vincent.
Yeah, Alex Vincent. And I know it's like it's so close to Andy, but Alex Vincent. Like obviously it's not him, so you don't have that connection carrying over. But just the story wise, it's just consistent with the fact that no one believes him. Like he's always going through stuff, and he deals with the psyche, and it's just. It's like whenever you have those movies that the woman in the window movies or whatever. It's like the Cry Wolf stuff, and it's like but it's like something's really happening, dude. And like you said, I like the military camp, the backdrop, and it just feels different. It sets itself apart, at least vibe wise. And then I just once again now we're to a point where this is about Chucky now. You know what I mean? Like. This now is Chucky's franchise. Like it always has been, but before it was the Chucky and Andy show. Now it's the Chucky show, and Andy just sits now featuring. So the fact that Chucky is full on Chucky post 2, that's what holds it up for me, because I can watch this and just check in just for the Chucky, one-liners, quips, tone, vibes. Brad Dourif, just obviously we haven't specifically mentioned and shouted out Brad Dourif, but like
he's just amazing. He's great.
He is a horror icon specifically just for what he's able to bring to this. Like there is no like other people can play Michael Myers physically. Other people can play, Jason Voorhees. Other people can play Ghostface. You know what I mean? Other people can maybe do the Freddy thing in theory, but like Chucky is so specific to like you have to like nail down that tone, the vibe, and you have to like make me believe that a doll is saying all this ridiculous stuff, and Brad Dourif is that perfect, you know what I mean? So that's the reason why this is going to be Friends of the Young, because it still feels, it's not, once again, not so over the top to like it's the perfect blend of all that stuff. Like I said, it's at the peak. It's not quite 2 for me, obviously, but it's at that nice peak of like these first 3 are just, it's a good trilogy. Like,
it's a totally watchable trilogy. Just for me, there's slightly diminishing returns just based on like the scripting of it and kind of where the plot goes for me, just personally. Some of the stuff is just retread. And like you said, much like the Nightmare, franchise, it became the Freddy show at some point, to where you didn't care as much about, like some characters would stand out, but it became like people were going to see Freddy. Like at this point, you're probably going to see Chucky. Like you're going to see, what's going on with him.
People are like, why is this even called Child's Play still? Like, let's just call it.
Should just call it Chucky. Yeah. Well, I mean, they would remedy that in the later series. Obviously, we're about to get to it, but yeah.
So speaking of that, I'm going to be honest. So. Bride of Chucky, I don't have the nostalgia for it. So I went into this watching it over the summer, and I realized 2 things. Bride of Chucky, Freddy vs. Jason, and Halloween H2O are like that era of movies where it's like if you grew up with those, those are your teen movies. Those are the movies that like, yeah, that was my that developed me as a person. So I don't have that, and it's ironic that all three of those I have about the similar opinions, that they're just middle of the franchise for me, and it's just an interesting scenario that a lot of all three of those are like favorites for a lot of people, and they're just not for me. So this one is a Glenn or Glenda, just because I like the Chucky Tiffany, dynamic. I like their relationship. I like what it does, but there's just something about just the movie as a whole that it just feels like a cartoon. And obviously, what we said earlier about the whole thing's fantasy and all that stuff. I'm not saying that like it's believable, but I'm talking about just the tone. I feel like it's too much of, all the comedy stuff. And like, it's not negative by any stretch of the imagination, but it's one of those ones where I feel like maybe it could grow on me, but it just hasn't done it yet. So without the nostalgia and without the long, just memory of it as, having that in my pocket, I don't know. Like, I do like the kills. Like, I like the mirror thing. Like, that was cool. And just the content, and what was the one scene when they're driving in the van? She's like, "I'm gonna bake you cookies," and he says something to her. She's like, "Well, fuck you," then. Or like,
well, he's like, well, they're trying to it's Katherine Heigl and the other guy, whatever his name is, like, who cares, handsome guy, like looks in the rearview mirror and it's like, well, she doesn't, she's not taking care of those dishes or whatever. She's not being a very good housekeeper. And he's just like, yeah, go clean up those dishes. She's like, fuck you. And he's like, fuck you. Like, it's a whole just thing. They're trying to make him like go at each other or whatever. So, because he could just set up. Yeah.
Elements of that is like, I feel like, I could get into it as time has gone by, but I feel like enough time has gone by that's like, I'm not as forgiving. But it's one of those ones where it's like, I don't have anything negative to say about it other than I just don't have anything to overly praise about it. But let's see where you are, because I know you've been a fan of this franchise. So if my prediction is this high, but I don't know.
So this is my favorite of the franchise. Top tier all the way. This movie's so much fun. I have lived with this movie for a long time. I've seen it many, many times. And I just think this one is entertaining as hell. And I think a lot of that is due to, like you said, Freddy vs. Jason, it's Ronnie Yu. It's the same director. Yeah. And this is what he did right before that. And I think there's a reason they kind of hired him for that, because I just think he has a sense of fun. I think you can tell he is a fan of the characters in the franchise, and he wanted to make a really breezy, fun movie that, is much like Freddy vs. Jason. It's a little meta, like they get a little meta, not too much, but like there's these little, sides here and there about how kind of wacky the thing is. Like, she's literally reading like Voodoo for Dummies. Like, it's kind of, it gets really silly as far as like, the concept, and the swapping body stuff, and the fact that they have to like go dig up a grave and they buried him with this dumb amulet, like, it's a MacGuffin, like it's a total MacGuffin, but it's fine. I just think the chemistry between Jennifer Tilly and Brad Dourif is so good. Like, it's just every scene with them to me is like total dynamite. Like, I just think they're having so much fun with each other and playing off each other, whether it's Chucky interacting with like, human size, Jennifer Tilly, like in the trailer and stuff, and the back and forth, and she's like locked him in the thing and is like messing around with him, and throwing rice at him, like all that stuff is fun. And, when she eventually becomes, the Tiffany doll, and like their kind of domestic quibbles and everything is just, for me, like, I just think every scene with them is just, it's just
and the jealousy of Chucky's during that was pretty fun too. Didn't he have like a nose ring or something he rips out?
He rips out like the whole face piercing. Yeah, it's like in his nose and his lips, and he like rips it out, and then he just sits on his face with like the pillow, and while he's struggling, she's just like, "Hey, babe, you look great," like all this stuff. Like, it's just the casual fun of like, this is happening in the background, but we don't care because we're gonna do this. Like, I love John Ritter, so like this is John Ritter in a horror movie, which is just such a unique anomaly, like before he's able to go. And
his dad, I'm trying to remember.
It's the Katherine Heigl's dad, and like, the way they sort of half kill him with like the nails thing, trying to be creative, but then he pops back out and he stabs him. He's just like, you can't beat a classic, like when he kills him. And just there's such that commentary on like how ridiculous the series gets to a point, but how you can take that ridiculousness and still have fun with it, I think is what Ronnie Yu, does with the movie, and kind of plays with those conventions. So you still have the little bit of the mystery, like Mr. X stuff, as people are dying and they don't know why, but like they figure it out eventually. And I just think the movie moves, man. It's like, again, it's 85 minutes, you're in and out. It's really great. They don't fuck around. They have a little fun with like the beginning evidence thing. There's like a Freddy glove in there and like a, a hockey mask, I mean, they're just being silly. And but I think it's good silly, not like bad silly. So I just think it's a lot of fun and it's really breezy and entertaining. And I could put this on at any time and just have a blast. I think it's great.
Yeah, that's the one good thing about the meta-ness and the silliness being up a notch is that you don't have to be fully invested in terms of like you just have this in the background. You can be on your phone.
Oh, and this is a total like I could put it on in the background anytime. Look up. Oh, there's a kill. Like there's this one scene where they're going back and forth at each other. You know, and then here's the scene where they kill the cop with like the gas. You know, like I could just totally do that with this movie. But I could also just sit down and watch it and have a good time, even with the lines and the chemistry. So I like this one a lot.
It's a good combination from a horror franchise movie. It's if you're able to do both, and you don't have to just be like that's. I feel like that's probably everyone's negative of the first one is you have to be invested and like sit down and watch it to enjoy it because it's so meticulous with its pacing and its story build up. Whereas in this one, you can just check in and out and just whatever. Same thing with 2 for me. But all right, so now we're moving over to the infamous Seed of Chucky, and this is something that the internet has opinions on, and I'm gonna start.
Okay.
No, you're starting actually. This one's on you. So go ahead.
So the internet has opinions. I have opinions too. I rewatched it again yesterday because I rewatch this movie every 3 or 4 years because I'm continually trying to reevaluate it. Unfortunately, my opinion has stayed the same as when I saw in the theaters, to where I think this is one of the worst movies ever made. I think this movie sucks dog water. This movie sucks. And I was so disappointed. I think this movie is total and complete and utter horse shit. Like this movie is total shit. I hate almost every beat of this movie. And where they go. I think you took such highs for me with Bride and all this stuff. And it's like, you have these two great characters and their chemistry, and it's like we're gonna incorporate like real Jennifer Tilly, and like she's making a movie, and like we're in Hollywood, like Redman, like what are we doing? Like, and Redman's making a movie when it could have just been them with like their kid like on a murder spree, like just doing their thing, like a continuation of Bride, and instead we're gonna go super meta with it, like over the top meta, to where like it's just like it's a full-on comedy, which is like I'm okay with in some circumstances, but this one, the comedy for me just doesn't land at all. And I hate the voice of the Glenn or Glenda character. It's stupid. And to me, it's like, it's trying to be clever. And it's like, hey, Glenn or Glenda, get it? You know, like the Ed Wood movie, get it? No, I got it. I just don't care. And I don't like it. And I just think it's fucking shitty and annoying. And like, I don't know, the chemistry for me between the two characters is not there. We spend way too much time just like with Jennifer Tilly, like doing auditions and like yapping with her assistant. And I don't care. Like the John Waters character is like, I'd be down for John Waters in a Chucky movie, but you could cut out all that shit. It wouldn't make a difference like whatsoever. And, I don't think the effects are as good. Like, I don't know. There's something weird with when they're talking and just like standing around that's not even as good as Bride. And this movie is just a total utter slog to get through. Like I hated almost every minute of this. Every time I rewatch it, I try to go in with an open mind. I swear, Henry, every like 2 or 3 years, I like rewatch it. And I'm like, maybe this will be the one where I turn the corner, and I never do. Like this movie sucks. I hate this movie. I hate this movie so much. I hated it in the theater, and I hate it now. Sorry for anybody who likes it or thinks it's like a cult classic. I'm glad you get some enjoyment out of it, but I don't like at all. And I'm sure you're gonna put in good guy, and you're gonna say it's the best thing ever, and that's great. Tell me why.
Well, that is something that this show has proven that could happen, but no, that is not.
Okay, you're gonna be like, man, this is like my second favorite of the series. This movie's great.
No. We're already at my. No, we have one more that is higher, but the rest of that is about. We're on pace now. I need to fill up these bottoms.
I'm sorry, just the way our show is. Like, I can totally see you being like, "Well, I love this movie. This movie's amazing." And I just
it's like me on Saw 6.
Texas Chainsaw 3D.
Yeah,
the second best of the series.
Or me on Saw 6. You're like, man, I hate this movie. And you're like, well, that's my favorite. No. So for me, I am going to, no pun intended, I am putting in the Glenn and Glenda right behind Chucky because it continues just like if I'm in the right mood for one, I feel like the other one just works. And like I don't have that connection to Bride where the goofiness and the over the top affects me. So it's one of those ones where it's a nice like transition, no pun intended, into just the next storyline. I actually like the Glenn and Glenda stuff because it's it's not like it would be today where it's a forced narrative. It's more of a narrative of like, we're fucking dolls. We don't know. Sure, if you want to be a boy, like there's no rules because you don't have a penis. You know what I mean? Like it's like that's why. You know what I mean? You can be whatever you want to be. You know what I mean? So whereas in today's day and age, he could have a 9-inch hog, and they're like, no. Don't decide that until later. It's like, no, what are we talking about? You know what I mean? Whereas in this one, it's like we're dolls, so it plays with that a little bit. And I feel like once again, it's not a forced agenda. I don't mind the Red Man stuff with the Jennifer Tilly just because it's one of those scenarios where Bride of Chucky is serious enough that the silliness doesn't juxtapose enough for me to like mesh well, whereas this one is just pure camp that I'm able to like accept it. So like obviously I like Bride more, but I don't feel like the gap's like that much because it's a continuation of just like this storyline, you know what I mean? And it's not offensive to me in terms of the franchise, and it's watchable. Once again, what is the actual runtime? The runtime's 87 minutes, less than 90 minutes with,
oh my God. Watching yesterday, I had to start and stop it like 3 times to finish it. I was just like, I don't want to finish this movie. Like, to me, the Red Man thing is like, it would be funny in like one scene, like she's going to audition for Red Man, is going to become a director and he's going to make a biblical movie. Like, that's funny for like a joke. But the fact that he's like a primary character, we just keep going. I'm like, why? Like, I don't understand.
His guts coming out and all
that.
Yeah,
no, I mean, there's some okay, like, again, there's moments that are okay in a vacuum. Like, if you put together a 5-minute cut of like a few things in this movie, it's fine. But
the thing that like works for me is like you talked about this with the first 3, where it's like just the concept is essentially the same with Mindy. No one believes me, and then just keeps on going. This one like sets it up differently. Like, we have a kid. Maybe we shouldn't kill. And then Chucky's like, psych, he crosses fingers, all stuff, but like at least adds, because like arguably Tiffany is more like psychotic than Chucky in Bride of Chucky. You know what I mean? So the fact that having a kid kind of turns that, motherly instinct on, and like potentially, but then she snaps that one time and it's like, oh, well, don't tell, you know what I mean? It's like, you are who you are, as a psychopath. So I like that it plays with that. At least, adjust the formula a little bit, for better or for worse. But similar to what we talked about Final Destination last time, where it's like, even though I like the movie, if the formula is the exact same, it's gonna, it can only do so much. So I at least respect that it switched up a little bit while not being too different. You know what I mean? So it's right in the middle for me. Glenn or Glenda for Glenn or Glenda.
All right. No, I know this movie's gotten a following over the years because of like the whole like the Glenn or Glenda, like sort of a trans, like cross-dress, whatever you want to call it, you know what I mean, like sort of that thing, like, oh, they were way ahead of their time or whatever. And I'm like, and like, okay, I'm glad, but make a better movie to me. Like I think there's a reason why I said
earlier, where it's like it's not forced, so it's more of like that's not the end all be all of like why I like the movie, but that adds to it because it's like narratively it makes sense of why it's doing it.
To me, I think Don Mancini, who directed these last 3, and he's always been a primary writer and producer of the series, and it's kind of like one of his babies. Like, we'll see where the series went because he directed, the next 2, and he directed this one, and it's like, I think even he kind of knew it had gone overboard because we see where the series goes back to with this next one, like, and it was too much, and the backlash like from the fan base was like, what, like, they were on board with Bride but not on board with this one. I think, if I had to guess, but yeah, so. Yeah, well, we jump about 10 years and we get to, like a straight to VOD kind of thing, but, still with Don Mancini.
Last thing to see, it grossed worldwide almost 25 million, which, let's see comparison to Bride. I feel like that's the main reason where people are like, all right, it's, word of mouth did not get out.
Bro, I remember clearly seeing this in an empty theater. I was the only one in the theater when I saw this thing, man, like opening weekend. And I remember just seeing the trailers and being like, well, I mean, I'm going to see it because it's my first Chucky movie in a theater, so I'm going to go watch it. But like, I don't remember. I remember this thing dying a slow death within about 2 or 3 weeks, the theater.
Yeah.
So.
All right. So now we are going to those VOD movies. And for me, the VOD is what's always going to keep this one down for me because I actually really like the contained story of Curse. I like the concept of the rat poison in the chili. I like the concept of, the being, handicapped, the trauma with the mom, the what if, all that. But every conversation we've ever had, or every conversation I've had on the internet, it does that thing with, this is, early 2010s, late 2000s, where it just does the thing with that filter, and it's like real grayed out, and it's just ugly to look at. So it's missing something, and it's got that filter, so it's ugly to look at. So that's always going to bring it down, but it's got a nice story. I'm going to put this also in Glen or Glenda because I like the story a lot and the concept, but just the physical execution and the VOD just is always going to hold it down. So it's below Bride for me. It splits Bride and Seed. So this is a Glen or Glenda for me because the VOD just brings it down. But I feel like I respect this more than I like it. Whereas in Bride, I like it more than I respect it. And Seed, I'm accepting it. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
they're all about the same for me. So that's that. Where are you at with this?
So I'm actually in the Friends Till the End category.
One thing I want to double. So as a fan of the franchise, how does this compare? But also, like, do you feel the VOD difference?
Yeah, but at the same time, it's like I get it because they were working with like, they didn't have much money to go with. So when you have that, you have to do that digital photography, because it's cheap to do. But I was gonna say, I think what he does with the limited environment and with the capabilities that he's working with, I still think it manages to be really atmospheric and kind of cool. Like I like the look of the movie regardless of that, because I think it looks different than the other ones and it's trying to go for something different. For me, it's in Friends to the End. I like this movie a lot. And these two, both Curse and Colt, were a real wild card for me because I had seen them when they first came out. I hadn't watched them since then, so I hadn't seen this movie in like 10 years. And I really needed to like go back and watch it. And like I got really into it. Like I dug like the buildup of the story. Maybe it's because it's very similar to the original, in sort of the structure where it's like, a kid has the doll, but the kid is kind of with it. It's a whodunit. Yeah. But again, you have the Nika character who's got this, she's in the wheelchair. She's got a disability. She's the one in the middle of it because she kind of gets it and figures it out, but the kid really doesn't, or kind of knows, but the kid doesn't really care, or is still, with the Chuck, is kind of manipulated by Chucky. But I liked a lot of the little side stuff. I like kind of the contained atmosphere of it, like the fact that it's in this mansion. I think they make good use of the environment and the different floors and the layout to where like you kind of get to know it and it still works and creates a little bit of suspense. So I mean, I'm down with it. I like where it kind of ends with. I guess spoiler for all these movies, whatever, but where they pin it all on her, like and think she went crazy, and I'm okay with that. And I like the fact that it kind of went back to just being more of a creepy, moody, atmospheric movie with Brad Dourif kind of turning up, the creep factor on it. Like it was a pleasant surprise. Like that was the most pleasant surprise coming back. And watching this movie was how much I kind of dug the vibe of it, just overall. I liked it. I had a good time with it.
Do you have it above?
It's still below Child's Play 2 because I think Child's Play 2 is just slightly better made because it's like it had a budget, and it had that. But not to say I can't enjoy some of these movies with what they do with it. But I get what you're saying about like there's a thing with digital photography when in the 2010s where like if you shot all digital and it wasn't on film and you also just didn't have much to play around with, like they all kind of look like that. So I get it. But like if I can get past that and just look to more of the writing and the story and like what's going on with it. Plus I just think Fiona Dourif is like really good in this movie. I think she's very, very good in this movie. And I like the character that she creates. So, and the fact that we continue it and kind of follow up with it is cool. So yeah.
What are your thoughts on just Chucky at Brad Dourif's performance after all these years now coming back to it and just?
I think he's still got the magic, like, and I think I've seen panels and stuff with him where he's one of these guys that's had to come to term with the fact that he's an Oscar-nominated actor. People forget that for One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Like he's a legitimate like theater screen actor, but he's one of these guys that has to also settle on the fact that he's going to be known as Chucky. Like whenever he passes away, like the headline is going to be voice of Chucky passes away. You know what I mean? And he's one of those guys like Robert Englund who's had to deal with that. But I still think he gets an enjoyment because of the different styles of the movies, he's able to, cater the performance to whatever is being asked of him. So he gets to play different, versions or he can be funny in some scenes. He can be scary in some scenes. He can be silly. He can be menacing, and like, I think it still offers, even though it's a voice role and voice actors will tell you this, it offers still legitimate acting chops. Like you can do the thing. So, I kind of wish he had, they have the flashbacks, in these movies, where he gets to kind of play Charles Lee Ray again, briefly.
The next one.
And the next one. Yeah, that's what I mean. Like that, but that's they do go back and do that, for these next ones. And I think that was kind of cool. Like he might have asked for that, like, hey, can I go back and play this original character again, at least in some capacity, and I think he jumped at that opportunity.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So speaking of that, what are your thoughts on Cult?
It's just slightly behind Curse for me. I had a good time with it again. I liked where they kind of jump in. They pick up right where the last one left off. It wasn't on the Peacock version, but I know I've seen it when I think I rented the DVD like from Redbox or something when it originally came out, and Peacock didn't have the post-credit scene, so I had to look it up on YouTube where they bring Andy back in, like the Alex Vincent character.
Same thing with me. With my with my versions on Vudu, I had to YouTube the post credits.
Yeah, YouTube the post. It was on the DVD. I know it was. I had read about it on like message board. They were like, "Hey, make sure you stay all the way through the thing because it has the scene where he gets shipped the thing, but he pops up and he's ready right there with the shotgun." Like I thought that was great. Like, and it was the original actor, and the fact that they work him back into the story, but he's still not the focus of it, but he's kind of always looming over the movie, and they kind of go back and forth to him. So the fact that they found a way to kind of bring him back in, I love the scenes with him in the cabin. Like the fact that he's just got the head like locked up in the safe, and it just brings him out every now and then. Just
what else would an Andy Barton character be after all the shit he's gone through? He's fucked up. Like,
well, this is the 2018 Halloween. Before that, the Laurie character, he's doing the survivalist thing. He's got a cabin.
He actually got a backstory of Laurie in 2018. This is exactly what it would be.
No, and that's what it is. He's literally the same thing. He's built like a cabin out in the middle of nowhere. He's armed himself. He's trained himself. He's like ready. But the difference is he literally has this remnant of it like in the safe that he still kind of pulls out every now and then. Is like and like talks to him and still is dealing with the shit, and, like torturing the head. Like it's so interesting. Like
go on dates, back and like talking like he's How did buddy? He's fucking with him. And it's like
no, it's so great. And then you get into it, and we go back to the Nika character, and she's obviously in this mental hospital. So again, it still has that look because it's very white and clean, and like a mental institution is. But I'm always down for like a good. I'm honestly always down for a good mental institution movie. Like I think it's fascinating and interesting.
It's ironic that Brad Dourif gets to go back to a mental institution.
Oh, well, they make a comment on it. Like there's a little meta comment where he's like "fucking cuckoo's nest, bitch" or whatever. They make a comment on it in the movie, so they're fully aware of that. But like that you have a doctor who like doesn't really believe it. It's all in your head, blah blah blah. But like, but by the end of the movie, like it's completely broken down. People are dying left and right. They do the glass thing again. With the one chick in the chair, like there's multiple Chuckies running around because they've inserted this idea that he can possess multiple bodies. Whatever, again, it's voodoo bullshit. Like who cares? It's all silly.
I do like the flashback when you go back and you actually it's like Saw franchise where it's like
all along.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, all right. Like I say this all the time. I don't need explanations, but if you give me something, I'm able to buy it. It's good enough for me.
Well, and they did the flashback where like they have the kid, they have the Nika child, and she's paralyzed because he stabbed her. But then he ran out, and he's in front of the Toy Story in the original movie. Like cool. Like I can be down with things like that. As kind of silly and absurd it is, I can roll with it if it's done well. And I like those flashback scenes.
Well, it makes sense. I mean, why everything with the mom? So I mean, if they at least had a plan, whether it fully connects and like makes sense with the original back in the day, maybe not, but at least with this new iteration, they knew what they were trying to write, and it's like it's similar to Saw. Like I said, it works because they make sense. Because like why Otherwise, in Curse, the mom just dying is just so random, and it's like, all right, whatever, happenstance. Whereas this one, they have a little plot.
And they bring back in the full form Jennifer Tilly, but they even have the nice line where like they're continuing the thing from Seed of Chucky where she possessed Jennifer Tilly or whatever, because they even have the line where she's like, Jennifer, Tiffany, I can't even tell the difference anymore, whatever. Like it's all like, we're not really there, like we don't really give a shit.
We're poking fun at our mistakes.
Yeah, it's just silly, with like where it's all connected, but it's like whatever, we can get past that. And yeah, the fact that Alex Vincent is kind of popping in and out of the movie is fun, and I just dig that they found a path, a story path, and they stick with it, and they just roll with it and have a good time. And I still think it's a good time. Like overall, it's a fun movie.
Yeah, absolutely, and I agree. I am
oh wow, okay, nice.
Right above.
So it's an improvement over Curse. Okay, so they go full on with it. Yeah, okay.
Like what you said, the look of it works for me because it's like in Moon Knight. Like if you watch Moon Knight and like all the mental stuff, it's like it's clean and crisp, but something's going on behind the surface. You know what I mean? And it just works. It's a vibe. And once again, it's just fun. The only thing that keeps it from good guy, honestly, is the Alex stuff. That's like, it makes sense within the story what he's going for, but it's a little rushed in terms of like, I feel like they should have did that in the second act, let him have his come up, and then the third act's all of a battle. They kind of just did that in the third act, and it kind of felt rushed. You know what I mean? Like it makes sense why he, purposely goes in there and why he's captured and he has a plan, even though it doesn't come together exactly as planned. But it's once again, that's the only thing that's going to keep it, a peg lower. But yeah, it's just my favorite. You know what I mean? It goes to the original and then this one. Like this one is just a lot of fun. And I could rewatch this one and no issues. I like you said, the mental hospital stuff. I like the dynamic between all the patients, the one who just walks around, just knows everything.
There's always that one character who knows everything somehow, but like, nobody believes them either because they're cuckoo.
The first time you meet them, they're a doctor and then they're not.
Yeah.
How close. But so yeah, it's fun. So now we're gonna end with the remake. And
did you? So you said you saw this in the theater, right? Because I did too.
So I rewatched this about a month ago.
Okay.
And I don't like the look. That's point one. I don't like the look. Mark Hamill's voice is fine.
Yeah.
He doesn't Joker it up enough to like really feel like Brad Dourif, but I feel like they did that on purpose because it would be too much like he's mimicking Brad Dourif's Chucky, being his own, which is a detriment to Mark Hamill's voice acting ability. I really like Aubrey Plaza, and I really like Brian Tyree Henry.
Yeah.
This one's
this movie's just so fine. It's fine. Yeah. It's fine. Glenn or Glenda, it's fine. Yeah, I'm right there with you. It's fine.
It's below Curse, but above CC.
Okay.
And is it below 3?
Yeah, it's below 3. This is the epitome of like, it's fine.
I do like the AI. I will say that. I love the concept of the AI. The execution
And I was trying to like put it into words today. It's like, this movie would be great if it wasn't called Child's Play. And that was kind of like the sentiment at the time, like it wouldn't be that bad if they didn't call it Child's Play. It's just one of the most unnecessary remakes ever. Like I will argue of unnecessary, again, not necessarily bad, unnecessary. I would put this up there because we're still cranking out good Chucky content now. Why did we need a remake? We just had these 2 movies that we just talked about, Cult and Curse, which were well received by fans. You know what I mean? Even you say like it's still decent, like Curse was decent and like Cult was good. Like there was all right. The Chucky series right now is being well received. I'm not caught up on it, but people are fans of it right now. Why does this movie exist? Why did we need it? You didn't need it to keep the property rights or whatever. You know what I mean? Like you didn't need it to keep the series going. The series was still going. Like I don't understand this.
It feels like Spiral in the Saw franchise. I always bring up the Saw franchise, but it feels like Spiral in the Saw franchise, whereas they're making Saw 10 now, and they're just like, oh, Saw the Spiral, that was a spinoff. Like if this was a spinoff, like if they didn't name it Chucky and they just did another doll with the AI stuff and it was like a spinoff, I think it would be a little better because now it makes sense why you're doing the AI stuff in the same universe as the Charles Lee Ray thing, and you kind of can bring that up, refer to that, and be like, oh, we have a history of that. Let's kind of use that to make the character smarter and experience it better because AI is more advanced anyway, so they're better. So you need to be better as characters, be more prepared. You know what I mean? If they did something with that, I feel like it would stand out. But yeah, the AI, like I said, the AI does work for me because in a day and age, it makes sense that it would be like that. But you got the creepy apartment guy. You got the kid, the main kid. I don't care about. You know what I mean?
No.
There's no Andy. Well, he's no our Andy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he's just kid.
Yeah.
I don't even remember his name.
I like Aubrey Plaza just because I like Aubrey Plaza.
I do too. I'm a Parks and Rec guy, so I love
feel like
Aubrey Plaza.
in the movie she's not really doing much, but I like her, so I'm willing to forgive it. And it's just like you said, it's just fine. Like it's not offensive, but it's not necessary.
No, yeah, and again, it's technically fairly well made. Yeah, Mark Hamill's like doing his thing, and he's a good voice actor. Like nobody denies that. Like he's really good at what he does. And yeah, I'm with you. Like I like some of the Bluetooth, like him taking over like the drones and the stuff, and all the stuff, and the finale is like kind of fun in that aspect where he's like throwing everything at everybody, and all that stuff, and the fact that he's programmed to like protect Andy no matter what, so he's killing people, like that's fine. Again, call it something else, like do something else, and people will be like, well, it's kind of like Child's Play. Okay, fine, like yeah, but there's movies that are like movies all the time, like whatever. But like it's just it just feels like a studio, like we're just making it just because we don't have anything else to make, and we're just doing it. Like why? Again, we knew the Chucky TV series was, even when this movie came out, the Chucky TV series was on the way, or it was already like the first season was already in the can or something, like whatever it was, and it was continuing that story. So it was like I just don't see this reason to exist, but it does exist. It's okay. It's there. I haven't rewatched it since the theater. I didn't get a chance to, but I was like,
I remember
would have done anything.
The third act in the store. I remember in the theater it being really cool, but then when I rewatched it, it felt underwhelming. Where it's like, all right, maybe it was just the difference of it at the time and being in the theater. But like when I watched it again, I'm like, yeah, the third act just doesn't really add anything. It's just carnage. It's just
the true test, Henry, is when I look to my right and I have these roughly 2,000 Blu-rays next to me, and I didn't even bother to buy this one. That should tell you everything I need to know. When I own stuff that's shittier than this, and I still, just because I'm like, I'm never gonna pull that off my shelf and like watch it ever.
You gotta rewatch the show, and you didn't. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I still had a show, and I still didn't like buy it for it. Which I'll buy anything for us to do a show. You know that. Like I thought we were gonna do Transformers movies, and I own the damn 4K set. So we are. Jesus Christ!
Especially with the new trailer just dropped. We kind of have to now.
Well, we're at least waiting till it comes out. I'll say that. So you got to give me time to fucking prep that one. Because my god,
it'll take a while to watch them all.
yeah. Oh my god, it's gonna take me a month to watch each one of them. Like it's just we'll get there when we get there. But it's whatever. It's fine.
So what stands out about this tier? What this tier list like?
One of these things is not like the other. Like I
mean. Literally.
I mean, it seems like we always have something like that, like, occasionally in these shows, but, I see discrepancies with, Bride of Chucky and Seed of Chucky, all over the place between the two of us and, where it went. But I mean, we're similar in some of the other mid ones,
So we can agree as a unit. The original, ironically, is our number one.
Bride is my number one, but if you put the original one as like the number one of the series, I'm fine. I'm fine with it because it's also
like it kind of has to be based on the ranking.
No, that's fine.
Next. And then ironically, Cult is next, and then Bride of Chucky, which is gonna kill you. It looks like right now, and then 3.
Child's Play 2 is real up there because I like that movie too.
Yeah, so it'll go Child's Play 2, Cult, and then Bride of Chucky.
All right.
And I know that hurts you.
Yeah.
And then we'll do the remake and then Seed.
Okay, that makes sense.
Oh no, and then Curse. So Curse above 3. We'll do Curse above 3.
Okay.
Yeah. I like that. And then 50 50 feet of dog shit, and then
and then seed.
and seed.
50 feet of Chucky seed, and then seed of Chucky.
No, I do not want that much chicken.
No.
I don't want the turkey baster. That's what we should name
it. Oh my god, that was the moment in the theater. Like I remember distinctly in the theater in 2004. I was just watching this movie and I was like, what are we doing? Like, we just had a Britney Spears joke. Like, what are we doing? And then, like, they pull up the turkey baster and it's like, oh my God, is this what we're doing? And then, ironically enough, 10 some odd years later, I'm in the theater for Don't Breathe. And if you know where that goes, and I'm just like, oh, what are we doing? Seed of Chucky now? Like, this is weird. They still
Seed of the Blind Man.
Yeah, Seed of the Blind Man. Like, what are we doing? Yeah.
All right. So that is.
So what the hell are we doing next, man? We gotta come up with something. We haven't even talked about this like off the air. Like, what are we doing?
Let's see. Is there anything relevant coming out that
Not really franchise, because like the next big movie is like Avatar, so it's like but I feel like, well, I could do it, but the problem is man, like The Abyss and True Lies are just so unavailable. It's just so weird. There've never been Blu-rays of them, or they're sometimes on streaming, sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're available for rent, sometimes they're not. Like he's dragging.
I'll tell you right now. I remember True Lies is on Hulu.
Is it okay?
And let's see if I'm pretty sure The Abyss isn't.
The Abyss is hard to find. I have like a shitty DVD of it, but it's not even on Blu-ray. That's the problem, and it's like you would have to pirate it. Yeah, it's one of those weird movies where it's like, it's a shame because it's a good movie, and the fact that Cameron is not, and even farmed it out to a third party, company to do a Blu-ray, to do a 4K, something like that, which these guys will do sometimes. And there's good companies that can do that, Arrow or Shout Factory. Like that's weird.
How are you on John Hughes movies?
I got some blind spots, but I own them. So it depends on what we do, because I have. Let me see if I've got it next to me while I'm here. Let's see. I've got this. See, but this doesn't include. This only includes some of them, because I got this little John Hughes thing right here. Yeah. But it's Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. Ferris Bueller, She's Having a Baby, Pretty in Pink, and Some Kind of Wonderful. I do have Breakfast Club. I'm pretty sure I own that one on. Yeah, let me see.
Uncle Buck.
Oh, I have Uncle Buck. Yeah, Uncle Buck's one of my favorite comedies. So, oddly enough, I don't own Breakfast Club, but I've seen it a bunch of times, so that's not a problem. I've never watched 16 Candles. I haven't seen Pretty in Pink. Those are just blind spots I never got to. Directed. What's directed?
Breakfast Club, Weird Science, Ferris, Planes, Trains, She's Having a Baby, Uncle Buck, and Curly Sue.
Yeah, I've got 3 or 4 of those I've never actually seen. They would be first-time watches, so it would be interesting. So
that's just the one I first thought of, because I want to do something semi-Christmas related, but like there's only so much you can do.
Sure.
We'll have to map it out in that. We're on the spot now. We can't think. We'll think of something. We'll try and be, semi-holiday related. Ideally, if not, it's not a big deal. Who cares? But
what, you don't want to watch all the Silent Night, Deadly Night movies with me? No,
might have to throw in Violent Night. Throw in the new David Harbour Santa Claus movie.
Okay, I'll tell you this as a friend. You don't want to watch Silent Night, Deadly Night 3 through 5. You don't. I've seen them, but you don't want to watch them. So no.
We'll throw Violent Night in there.
Yeah, right.
We'll just call it the Bad Santa franchise, and anything the Bad Santa, we'll count it. I don't know. We'll figure something out.
We'll do something. Yeah.
What do you got going on for your channel, and what's going on with you?
No, Movie Hero Network. We do our thing, tier ranker fights and tournament fights. It's a lot of people's favorite movie stuff right now that we're kind of cranking through. Some people's favorite 128s, which are fun shows because you never know what's going to pop up, and just seeing kind of what goes on there. Moose Haas from the Schmodown is starting his own SmackDown, the movie trivia SmackDown. That's where Harloff got the name, so I confuse it sometimes. But yeah, he's starting his own trivia league, so I don't know what his YouTube channel is officially going to be called, but I'm going to be doing a Rocky match with JTE, oddly enough. So yeah, it's already set in stone, Henry. I know. I'm sorry, but yeah. So yeah, I'm going to be doing that. That should be interesting, and yeah, we're just doing our thing over there. So yeah, come check us out.
There you go, and then. Obviously, if you're on this channel, if for some reason you entered in a Chucky, tier thing, and you stumbled upon us, subscribe to the channel, check us out. We tier other things. We've done Friday 13th, Halloween, and Final Destination, just kind of recapping, post Halloween horror season. And then now we're going to decide what we're going to do. But also we have different types of brackets on this show. We started drafts, random trivia things, Jeopardy, and other stuff on the channel. That's a lot of fun. So make sure you all the content. So with that said, my name is Henry Confidential. That is Austin Pez Howell, and this is where we show up and rank and tier stuff. Bye.
Ade Due Dembella, give me the power, I beg of you.
God damn it, bitch.